I'm a child of the 1930s. I grew up behind the barbed wire fences of U.S. internment camps. I grew up in Los Angeles after internment in East L.A., from an all-Japanese American community to an all-Mexican American community. I love the Mexican American culture, the food, and I was surrounded by that language, which I developed a curiosity about. And I studied it in junior high school, and in college I chose Latin American Studies as my minor. My father used to say, you have a useless major, theater arts, and a hopeless minor, Latin American Studies. I'm going to be supporting you for the rest of your life. Well, I showed him. Spanish gives me access to the larger world. I also speak Japanese, which I hated as a child because we had to go to school on Saturdays. We were, however, rewarded with a trip to Japan during the summer. And I do speak Japanese fluently. That gives me access to the larger world via language. And because we live in a global society, I think we need that tool as artists. We can't just see ourselves from our perspective. We have to be able to get into other shoes and see us as others see us, or to be able to better understand other societies. But most importantly, we have to know where we came from and how we were shaped. We have to know the forces, the values, and we have to have both, see that as a challenge and an opportunity. Yes, we may have faced discrimination. Those are challenges. But with what we have, the talent that we have, and the confidence in who we are, we can overcome the challenges. We have the blessings of the forces that shaped us, our families, our communities. And we need to take pride in that. And that's why we built the museum, because our story is important to the larger community. We need to be, as Dr. Hirabayashi said, engaged people, engaged in our community, our nation, and the world. I think of the phrase that a great Frenchman coined, homme engagé, an engaged man. André Malraux was the one who coined that phrase. He was a soldier, he was a poet, he was a politician, he was a diplomat, and he was a great novelist. Some of you may have read the novel The Human Condition by André Malraux. It's a great novel. We as artists have to be homme engagé, people involved and engaged with our society, to make our art that much richer. And we do indeed live in interesting times. Because as an American, I'm very mindful of the history of this country. We were founded on glorious ideals, shining ideals of our democracy. Yet the people who coined that phrase, or our ideals, kept other human beings as slaves. But because those slaves struggled for freedom and for justice, and because their children and grandchildren and the generations that followed continued the struggle through the Jim Crow years and through the Civil Rights Movement, that we today have legendary African-American artists, Lionel Hampton, Leontyne Price, and we have, of all undreamed of things, from that generation, an African-American is the President of the United States. To a large extent, my career has been influenced by a great man from the world of television, Gene Roddenberry. At that time, television was pap, but Gene felt that television was a potent, powerful instrument for more than just brainless entertainment. He felt that it can be a medium for informing, for educating, for inspiring, and for galvanizing. And he created Star Trek, which was placed in the 23rd century. It was a very optimistic view of the future. Gene saw beyond whatever boxes that at that time were considered limitations. He said that we will overcome the challenges that we face in our times. It was a time, 1960s was a time when this country was turbulent with racial strife. I still can't forget the horrors of the Watts riot here in Los Angeles. Same kind of riots were exploding in all the other great major cities of this country, Chicago, Harlem, Memphis, all over this country. And yet, he put on television a multi-racial, multicultural, multi-ethnic crew working together in unison, in concert, as a team. It was pure social fantasy. Sure, the show was science fiction, but the visuals were social fantasy, social fiction. It was also a time of the Cold War. Two great powers, the Soviet Union and the US, threatening each other with mutual nuclear annihilation. And at a time like that, we had a trusted colleague, Chekhov, the navigator, a Russian, speaking with a Russian accent, proud of his Russian heritage. It was pure political fiction. Today, we have, in fact, a spacecraft out in space. We call it the International Space Station. And the crew of that space station is made up of people from throughout this planet, from different nations, different cultures, speaking different languages, holding different faiths, working together as a team. And most astounding of all, most undreamed of, only 40 years ago, Americans and Russians working together side by side. These are people that did not have boxes to think outside of. They had a vision and they believed in it and they worked for it. And that's what artists have to do. Live in the larger world, mindful of the core pillar of our background, our families and our communities, and taking all that and doing what you will to make this a better world. So you have a rich and hopefully engaging afternoon before you. My very best wishes and thank you. Oh, and don't forget, Star Trek's going to be opening up next week. 11th movie. Live long and prosper.